Okay, so my DC connector inside of my laptop broke, and there's a harness that holds the DC connector in place inside the laptop. So when you plug your power cord into the DC connector, it keeps it from moving around. With that being said, there was that plastic piece that holds that DC connector inside of the laptop, inside of my laptop, broke. So it's plastic, so you have to glue plastic to plastic, and not all glues will hold up using plastic to plastic. The glue, the JB Weld glue, says that it can glue plastic to plastic, but the many objects are made with polypropylene precisely because it is resilient and resistant to most solvents and glues. Also, there are very few glues available specifically for gluing polypropylene. However, solid polypropylene objects not subject to undue flexing can be satisfactorily joined with a two-part proxy glue or using hot glue guns. There are also industrial glues available for polypropylene, but these can be difficult to find, especially in retail stores. So I'm going to use this glue here to glue my DC connector inside of my laptop. Well, not my DC connector, but there's a piece of plastic that holds the DC connector in place. I'm going to use this glue here to glue that back in place. It's Loctite plastic, all material. It's a bonding system. It has a plastic activator here, then it has a plastic bonder here. So I'm going to use that glue this glue to glue that piece of plastic that holds my DC connector inside of my laptop in place. I'm also going to use the JB Weld glue. I'm just going to use both. I'm going to use the Loctite to set the piece in place, and then I'm going to use the JBL Weld around it to give it extra, keep it in place basically. Okay, as I mentioned, I have to glue my DC connector, or the piece of plastic that holds the DC connector in place. This is the DC connector here. So if I remove it, there's a there's a piece of plastic that holds the DC connector in place. It goes right here, and the DC connector goes here. So I'm going to use that Loctite plastic bonder and the JBL Weld plastic bond glue to hold this plastic piece that broke off in place, or glue it back in place so it can hold the DC connector in place. So what will happen if I don't do this, if I put this DC connector here and try to plug the power cord in here, it'll push it back and it'll never go into this hole right here. So I need to stick it in here, plus put this, or glue this piece of plastic back in place right here, so that so that this guy won't move when I try to plug the power cord in. It just broke off. It seems very flimsy. It should have probably made it more sturdy, but I have to glue it back in position so that I can plug the power cord into this hole and it won't push back. If it's not stable, it'll never plug, the power cord will never plug in this hole. So I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Oops. This is the power cord. It goes into a hole right here. And if this guy is not stable, this DC connector, it'll just push against it and push it back, and it'll never go into the hole, this hole right here, where it connects. So you have to have this piece of plastic to stabilize, the back end of this, so it doesn't move, when you try to plug the power cord into here. So that's the reason why I'm going to use that glue to glue this piece back down. Okay, so the instructions say apply the activator to both surfaces. So I'm applying the activator here. This is the activator. So I applied it inside the computer. Now I'm going to apply it to the piece of plastic that I want to put glue into the computer. I'm not going to be able to record when I put the glue in there, because it's going to be such a small working area. You won't be able to see it anyways. But they say apply this activator and let it sit for 30 seconds. So that's what this is, activator. Okay, so I've glued the piece in place. It's right here. It's right there. So I couldn't hold the record and glue it at the same time, but that's the piece. It sets in about 30 seconds, but I'm gonna give it 24 hours before I try to put the DC connector in. I may have to undo the power and the display to get it in there, but this is the piece here. It's kind of hard to see, but that's the piece right there that I glued down. So I'm gonna let it cure or set for 24 hours before I try to do anything with it. Hopefully it won't move. It'll just be there forever. So again, that's the little piece of plastic that broke off here that holds the DC connector in place. It's not, I took it out, but this is the DC connector here. I have to put it back in there, but this guy needs to hold it in. This piece of plastic needs to hold it in place, so when I put the power cord in, it doesn't move. So that's why I had to glue this back together. Okay, I used a little of this plastic bond, JB Weld plastic bonder also, just to make sure the plastic piece stays in place. So I just want to share that. Probably can't tell, but the JB Weld glue dries very black, so I put it in there also. End up having to glue this button to keep this DC power connector from moving. I had to glue the button right instead to keep it in position, so I had to improvise. Okay guys, when you use this JB Weld, you have to squeeze it, comes out. You have to mix it together. So that's what I'm doing here. So it's mixed together. Okay, I had to do some improvising. So I put a button to stabilize the DC connector. I just put this paper on each side so that the glue wouldn't get on the paper. But that's essentially what I'm doing here. I'm using a JB Weld glue, so we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so got everything fixed. I plugged it in once. Make sure it goes in, doesn't move, nothing breaks. So unplug it. So I'm going to put this back together and close it up. If you have to glue some plastic on plastic, this JB Weld plastic bonder high strength structural adhesive, it works pretty well. I had to glue a piece back that's plastic onto the base of the laptop, and it seems to work pretty well. So it's the first time I've ever used it. I'm not getting paid by them or anything. It's just something I read up on and tried. Okay, so I'm going to put this back on. You have to make sure all of your ribbons, are available. So you want to make sure there's no ribbon sticking up under there. Just plop this guy in the right way. It's your power, and snap it on all the way around. So snap it in.